as we get into this, I would like to run the little intro by you. So I'm introducing you as a marine biologist, an engineer, an author, a veteran of many deep space missions, and perhaps
Can I stop you there? I've not done any deep space missions.
Oh, did I say deep space? Oh, I'm sorry.
Deep sea?
Yes.
This is what, like, yeah, it's podcasting Freudian slip going on. Yeah, deep sea.
Yeah.
I did write deep space. What is wrong with me?
Did you just hallucinate?
It's just where your brain's at. It's,
Okay, a veteran of many deep sea missions. Okay, there we go.
We're already over. I mean, that's the whole theme of the episode, right? We're overlapping sea and space. So.
Exactly. Yes, and that's why I'm losing control.
We just started early. So,
yeah, the language centers of my brain are already melting quite nicely.
I cannot guarantee I haven't been abducted by aliens, so maybe I have done
well,
many deep space missions. I just haven't recalled them yet from my subconscious.
The aliens generally come down from above, from space, so we're safer to be than underwater.
True, but don't they take you into space to do nasty things to you and then put you back
fair.
where you started?
We had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning now. As we have an apparent serious oxygen leak.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we've had a problem. He's in a roll and he can't stop it. Performing an evasive maneuver. Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. I think we need to do a little more all-weather testing.
Welcome to space.
Hello, listener, and welcome to Failure to Launch, the space history podcast where we take you through all the mistakes, failures, and explosions that made modern space exploration possible. We are your hosts, Quinn, he, him.
Chris, he, him.
Alan, he, him.
And a sleepy Chris, him.
And today, we're talking deep sea exploration, how it compares to exploring space, and why, at least we think, it is so much scarier in every way. Although you did say that you were fighting to kind of change that perception a little bit, correct?
Yeah, that's one of the threads in our research. I mean, we specialize in diving submarines to the deepest places on Earth. And when you do that, the reaction you get when you tell people what you do is normally one of extreme horror. I think it goes two different ways, actually. There's people of a certain disposition who are like, yeah. And there's people who are like, oh my God, I couldn't even sit in that thing, let alone go underwater.
Yeah.
And so I think the problem with perception is we looked into this quite heavily at one point, thinking, why do people keep freaking out? Because the deepest point on Earth is 7 miles, right?
Yeah.
That sounds horrifying, being 7 miles underwater, but 7 miles horizontally is not that far. I probably drove more than 7 miles this morning, right? So in terms of distance, it's not much.
Right.
All you do is flip it 90 degrees and suddenly you're like, oh my God, we're all going to die. So I guess it's a little bit similar to...
Let's be fair, there's a bit of an environmental difference between 7 miles horizontal and 7 miles vertical down, but I get you.
I am now white-knuckling my steering wheel on the way to work.
Yeah, just waiting for my... Just driving to work and slowly noticing the crack in my windshield getting bigger and bigger.
Oh no.
I realized I'm on the Trieste. I'm about to watch a window implode slightly. I am still fine. I have made it to work.
But I think what that fear is if we as humans have evolved an archetypal fear of water, right? It doesn't take much to realize that you can't survive underwater very well.
Right.
Let's not even bother about pressure, right? You're just like, you go underwater at the beach, 1 meter underwater, and you realize you're in real trouble. And so there is an inherent fear with being unable to breathe, because we're air-breathing mammals, right? The other thing we don't like is we're visually orientated animals too, right? So the problem with deep sea is also dark, and we have a phrase called deepest, darkest fears, which ticks both boxes, right? And you're like, okay, that's a thing, right? But then you look at space. People don't seem to have the same revulsion to it,
right?
Because I don't think we've evolved to fear a vacuum.
It's so completely alien that they're like the reptile part of your brain has had zero opportunity.
Yeah.
It's an outside context problem. We just don't have the frame to truly acknowledge how bad it can be.
So I think then that's something that we can work on together. We can, like, through this podcast, figure this out. Not that we need to be less scared of underwater, but that we need to be more scared of space.
Well, the weird thing as well is the response to it. So when you talk about deep sea, a lot of people think monsters, creatures, darkness, the abyss, all these scary Lovecraftian terms for what is actually a beautiful environment. But you look at space and it will kill you just as quick, right? Let's not make any mistakes here. It's going to kill you just as fast.
And it doesn't even have any cool fish yet.
Yeah, but I mean, we think of it as celestial and the heavens, and what is up is beautiful and what is down is ugly. It's like the heaven and hell, right? And so both environments are very much against you,
right,
in equal par. But we look up at the stars and we think that's beautiful and celestial, and one day I'll reach another planet and there's the moon at night and the sun and all the life-giving things. And then you say, well, what about deep sea? And they go, ugh, megalodon. And you're like, there's not.
Are we going to have a bit of a problem here? Do I detect some resentment in your tone against our chosen field, or
No, I think it's a genuine. If you want to get people to look after the planet, right, you got to look after deep sea. Right?
Oh yeah,
most of the planet is deep sea.
Got to look after all of it.
Yeah, and no one's going to care if you keep telling them it's a horrible place full of monsters. So it's not resentment of space. It's how do we as deep sea scientists convince people that deep sea is majestic as deep space?
Right.
I mean, it's not like litter doesn't need to live. You say protecting the planet, and I'm immediately brought to that one post of, I think it was a bottle of Heineken or Stella that was at the just 35,000 feet down.
Jesus.
Yeah, we see stuff all the time. Every dive we do, we see something.
It's disgusting.
Like some bit of human detritus that's made its way down there. Oh.
It's not. I would say it's not anywhere near as bad as the media would make it out to be, but every dive we'll see at least one thing that shouldn't be there. Right.
Right. I should probably introduce our guest now, listener.
Hello.
To guide us through the wonders of the depths, as you have already been hearing, we have got Dr. Alan Jamieson on, who is a marine biologist, an engineer, an author, and a veteran of many deep sea missions. And, perhaps most prestigiously, a podcaster. One of the hosts of the very good Deep Sea podcast, which I highly recommend. I also guarantee you I missed a couple of qualifications, but suffice to say that he is overqualified to be talking to us and you, listeners, specifically.
Yeah, so you have to stop listening, like, right now, or you're going to get in trouble.
I'm proud of you, Quinn. You got the change in height correct.
So yeah, Alan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is great. Keep going. Bring it on. Bring on the roasting or whatever is about to happen.
The roast is pointed at the listeners right now.
Yeah, I set this up as an interview. It's actually a formal debate.
Right.
Only one side will be getting any funding and or appreciation after this.
Me realizing that, Chris, you missed an opportunity to be a compressed Chris.
I do not want to tempt fate. I have had too many technical issues today that I have just breezed past.
And your apartment is below ground level, we established. So there is some potential crush risk.
I mean, in theory, it could flood tonight, so I may well be floating.
There you go. And the electricity will go out and be dark as well, and there you go.
I think that the purpose of this session is it's like exposure therapy.
Yeah. I'll tell you lots of horrible things and we'll just riff back and forward on terrible, terrible stories.
You put enough machine metal between me and the environment, and I will become placid. I will become Buddha in nature.
I mean, that is one thing that I feel like both of these environments could be solved by, which is as much titanium as I can possibly get my hands on. You want to make a safe spacecraft, you build it out of several inches of pure titanium.
No, I'm just going to remember my fondest submarine, the Alvin, because it sank once, and it's never going to sink again.
Oh yeah, they did recover that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost at the surface because a goober left a hatch open.
Okay, well, let's not judge too much, because rockets have failed for equally dumb reasons.
And I've never been aboard the Alvin, so I can't really say anything. I do love the escape, capsule function it was designed with.
Oh, yeah. So, space exploration and deep sea exploration are things that I have often seen compared. However, a lot of that comes down to like the design and the engineering that goes into exploring either. So like rockets and submarines. And that's definitely something I'd like to talk about, but something I don't see brought up as much is like the human factors side. So both space and deep sea explorers seem to be, these really driven individuals who have dedicated decades of education and training towards exploring places that are utterly inimical to human life. Places with all of this incredible opportunity for scientific discovery, and where those engineering advances, making a safer spacecraft, making a safer submersible, often make their way out to normal people. Like there are advances of deep sea exploration that have just become parts of everyday life. And specifically on the human factors side, both of these places being, at least on the space side, living in space is absolutely horrible. Only made tolerable by the fact that you are in space. So I'd like to ask a couple of questions about that and kind of dig into both the community of deep sea explorers as well as the kind of person that it attracts, and kind of what is it like on a deep sea mission if you par away the wonder and scientific exploration?
I would say it's not a comfortable day out. I mean, the submarine we use is called Bakunawa.
Okay.
And it's a 2-person submarine, so it's pretty tight. You're sitting pretty much shoulder to shoulder on a deep dive to 11,000, you're probably looking at 12 hours. So you're 4 hours just sinking, 4 hours driving around on the bottom doing your stuff. This is the exciting bit. And then at the end, you just release the weights and you're 4 hours floating back to the surface. The last 20 minutes is normally by far the worst because you're now light and you're floating around and you're waiting to be picked up. So that's when you get a bit of a beating.
Ooh.
But over the course of the dive, it starts off, you can be somewhere really warm. Like our last big deep dives were off Tonga. And on the surface is like 30 degrees Celsius, and you're getting the sub and you're like, God, this is sweaty as hell, and this is really kind of hot. Of course, once you go down, deep sea is less than 2 degrees Celsius, so it's close to freezing. So after a while, you go from being really sweaty to be colder and colder and colder and colder. And sometimes you come back and you can't feel your feet. So it's quite difficult trying to get out the sub when your feet are exploding. Yeah.
And then immediately into a tropical environment and you're sweating again.
Yeah. You open the hatch and the guy who opens the hatch from the outside is like, my God, this stinks. Because you just get this plume of 2 guys from sitting on this thing for 12 hours. And then we get this rush of humid air coming down and you're like, oh, this is awful. And you've just spent 20 minutes bashing around on the surface. So the last bit is awful. But the bit at the bottom, when you approach the seafloor, you're going real slow because the sub has to slow down all the way. So because to get it to go fast, you put a lot of weight on it. And that means you leave the surface really fast. But when you go deeper, the seawater density increases, but your mass doesn't. And your volume decreases because of the squeeze. So you slow down the whole way. So the time you get to the bottom, you're really creeping down.
Okay.
And then suddenly you see that seafloor coming out through the darkness, and you're like, oh, great, game on. Right, that's the bit where you're like, here, this is what we've got to play with for the next 4 hours. So it's not comfortable. I mean, everyone asks about the toilet, so you just don't. It's better to have an iron bladder.
Okay,
that's a prerequisite. there are sometimes bottles in there, but generally you don't.
Making sure to whip a Gatorade bottle into this thing.
Yeah,
an empty Gatorade.
You can't exactly. At least spacecraft have the opportunity to vent the urine tank every now and then.
We don't do that. The trick is you just don't drink in the morning. If you're thirsty, you take a swig of water and you spit it out.
Oh, okay.
And that tricks your brain into thinking you've drank something.
Oh, that's smart.
Do you bring a drink and snacks for like the last 2 hours whenever you're confident you can be back on the ship? Okay.
I've got an iron bladder. I don't care. I drink the whole way through it.
All right.
I just don't mind. But the trick with food is you're always trying to pick something that doesn't leave crumbs, because the guys who have to climb in afterwards and clean it out get real annoyed.
A nice parallel.
Well, I was going to say our first space parallel is cracking the hatch and immediately having the recovery crews comment on how everybody stinks. That is something very famous with space exploration, of like cracking the hatch after one of our favorite missions is Gemini 7, which was 2 men in a space about the size of a VW Beetle for 2 weeks, no showering, no changing their clothes or anything, and just cracking the hatch and just that.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
One big belch.
I love the overlap of just like trapping people in a small metal container for a period of time and opening it up and it just stinks, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's unfairly judged by the swimmer who opens a hatch. It's like, well, you sit in this thing for 6 hours and try not to produce anything.
Just before you go down, just like, hey, walking over to the swimmer, like, I don't actually smell right now, okay? I'm not like this most of the time. It's just for the dive.
Well, do you have these things in over there? You know, these call them magic tree air fresheners for the car.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You know, we could maybe start introducing those, right? Like pine fresh or something like that. Fine.
Just making a complete necklace out of them, just 8 of these jangling about my person.
It's not helping.
You go into your submersible and it just has the new car smell, you know?
Yeah. There was a funny story about smells once. I was doing a real deep dive, like 9,000 meters off Japan, with a guy called Chris. And we're a good couple of hours on the descent. And we're sitting there going, what the hell is that smell? Because, you know, when you're in a sub, and it's kind of dark and it's quiet, and every sound, you're very hyper alert.
Right.
Oh no.
Any sound or crack or creaking and stuff could be quite, you know, something. So you're kind of a little bit heightened, right? At the same time, we kept smelling this thing. You're going, is that an electrical smell? Because if it is, I don't know, like, you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't place it. It turned out he made a cheese and pickle sandwich, and it was the pickle. and the pickle was so alien to being inside the sub. You're like, your brain couldn't process what that smell was.
Right.
Because why the hell would there be pickle in the sub? And it's like, oh, you brought a pickle sandwich. Well, thanks, mate. That's
Good on you for that one. I can't wait to smell the first burp out of that.
The bitter aroma fills the space.
Yeah.
I would dare say that space might have the worst end of the stick here because you have the infamous bag from Gemini.
Okay, but they have modern toilets now. They don't
Now
have to
they
use
do.
the plastic bags anymore. Little engineering question. I do still want to dig into the human factors stuff more, but like whenever you're descending, whenever you get to the bottom, do you drop some ballast in order to reach neutral buoyancy? And then
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So we've got 3 different sets of weights. So we've got what called the VBTs, which are variable ballast something tubes.
Okay.
And inside those, there's about 25 slugs of 5 kilogram steel. So that's the ones you trim. So you're trying to get to neutral on the bottom. So when you get to the bottom, you basically sit about 100 meters off. And you're just looking at the window and you're looking at the altimeter and you're going, am I going up or down? And if you're going up a little bit, you drop 1 and then you try and get neutral and then you start to dive.
Okay.
To leave the seafloor, we've got 2 big chunks. And the amount of weight you put on depends on what depth you're going to. So you would drop what's called the surfacing weight. And that takes you up. And when you get to about 3,000 meters from the surface, you drop the freeboard weight. And that's the one that pushes you up through the surface. If you drop both on the bottom, the reason why we drop them at different depths is because you come up so fast, you start to do what's called the porpoise, which means the sub starts to snake back and forward. And then that becomes very uncomfortable when you're like 4 hours of just being slung back and forward.
And the pickle sandwich.
Dropping the weights twice means that you can kind of control it. And what we normally do is put it into a spin, just a very, very minor. So we're kind of very gently corkscrewing on the way up.
Okay. So that any forward and backward gets kind of at least canceled out a bit.
Yeah, and you slow it to the point you can't feel it. If you go too much, you go, oh my God, we're spinning. Right? And you're playing with your gut senses. And then so you get it just enough that you're turning, but you can't feel it.
Yeah, we do not want to disturb the stomach of the guy who just ate the pickle sandwich. We want to keep him nice and stable
Nice
and comfortable.
solid.
Yeah.
So I had 2 things. The submarine you were on was the Bakanawa.
Yeah.
How big is the crew space on that?
The titanium sphere is a little over 1 meter diameter, so it's real tight. There's about, I would say, about 8 inches between the 2 of us, and if you're on the pilot side, your left leg is bent 45 degrees into the middle of the sphere. If you're on my side, the right starboard side, your right leg is bent 45. So you are following the curve of the sphere. It's that tight.
Oh,
Okay.
So you do find sometimes when you get out, your lower back is pretty seized up at times, you know, and it's not. You do have to be a little bit flexible. I'm not a flexible
Gotcha.
guy. I get away with it, but you know, yeah, it's tight.
So for context, listeners, for those who might know more about the space side, that is less internal volume than the first Soviet spacecrafts. That is less volume than Yuri Gagarin had something like 60, 70 years ago.
And this is putting 2 people in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the overlap of between sea and space, where it's smaller crew members is more efficient, except the weight isn't the issue this time, it's the space.
Yeah, but what dictated the space on our one is the engineers in Florida. It was designed by a British guy who was working for a submarine company in Florida, and they were looking at how to pressure test the sphere. And there was only one vessel in the world that you could drop a sphere into that will take it to that
Oh,
pressure.
okay.
Which the test pressure is obviously like 30% more
Huh.
than the deepest point. And it was the Krylov Institute in Russia. And so the diameter of a sphere is designed specifically to just and no more fit into the Krylov
Okay.
pressure chamber.
So the design was dictated by access to this test setup, and this test setup was small enough, or
Yeah.
was small enough such that it was a design limitation. Not,
Yeah.
it was a design bottleneck.
Because the alternative is you build your own chamber, but that adds another like $15 million onto the project because you have to design your own chamber to test your own sphere and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Suddenly. So that's what dictated it. So I think in the perfect world, it would have been a little bit bigger.
Okay. That is one thing that, like, I know, especially in the wake of, like the Titan implosion, sorry, there is kind of a perception. I'm going to take a swing and say a unfair perception of the entire
Yes.
industry as
Fair
having that same kind of, like, and this is something we also see in space a whole lot, of the move fast and break things tech bro approach towards testing, regulation, things like that.
Someone carking it up when there was no reason.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess based on that, it is refreshing to hear that the testing regimen is so the testing is so regimented and enforced that it is actually like that, you are limiting the size of your capsule such that you are able to test it to the proper depths.
It goes beyond that. So the design of the sub was done in conjunction with DNV, which is a third-party classification, like Lloyd's and ABS and stuff like that. So they were involved every step of the way. And things like the viewports of the sub, there's 3 on the sub, but there's also another bunch of replicas that were built at the same time from the same machine that get 50 cycles ahead of the sub. So if anything happens in the testing on those ones, then it's time to go back and look at the other ones. Plus, every single thing we have on the sub that has an airspace, a possible implodable airspace, we have like 3 of those. So there'll be ones on the sub, there'll be a spare on the ship, and there'll be another lot being pressure tested. And they just constantly get cycled through. So, I mean, it's what happened on Titan was absolutely human folly. I mean, it was nothing to do with submersibles as a vehicle, although it's done a lot of damage to the reputation. But we always use the phrase, it's like, I could just build a rocket in my back garden and just light it and see if I can get into space. And it turns out it exploded, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you have to ground SpaceX and NASA because one went, right? And so, but that's what happened.
Right.
It's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying.
And in conjunction with what we talked about earlier, that kind of ingrained fear of the deep, it just compounds itself.
Yeah, it just reinforced everyone's already pre-existing fear, right? They're like, okay, that does happen.
I was correct to think that way, yes.
Exactly, yeah.
People have been stupid on the planet Earth, and no, there is no way that possibly could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, the depth there one imploded that wasn't even, in my opinion, not that deep either. It was only about 3,000 meters. We regularly go at least twice that, maybe 3 times that regularly, and don't think much of it. And
bring back up, in my opinion, the GOAT. Alvin dived to that depth how many times?
Oh, probably hundreds. Yeah. It's not a deep depth. It's just a very bad submarine.
Yeah, exactly. Just its duty cycle is proven out. Your carbon fiber tube has not been.
Yeah.
So in the business, we don't acknowledge Titan as being a legitimate concern. It was just a really stupid vision for a really
money grab,
badly engineered thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That is also something we talk about a lot with space failures, especially because any space disaster, any space mishap, the organization will almost always try and pin it on like one singular cause. It'll be one guy that messed up. It'll be like a nice simple answer to put a bow on everything, when it's almost always systemic. It's almost always like if your rocket, if your submarine, if you can be damaged or caused to fail by one person messing up, then that means that like your QA wasn't good enough. It means that your workplace culture didn't talk about quality or safety. Like there's all these
your
hints.
checks and balances, right? Your checks and balances have to be in place, that no one person can do anything that will result in failure. That's the point. I think there's good analogies there as well. With yes, the pressure at deep sea and the pressure at space are quite different, but they're still as unforgiving as each other, right? If that hatch doesn't seal in space, you're dead. If the hatch doesn't seal at depth, you're dead. And there has to be processes in place that says no one person can break that hatch or not fit it properly, right? So there's a lot of synergies and unforgiving engineering challenges.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it comes back to, I think you said it first, Quinn, both are inimical to human life.
Yeah, they really don't like humans being around.
At the end of the day, you cannot exist in that environment. One might be a little more traumatic to expire in, but
nature, evolution, everything is telling us not to go there. But we're going anyway.
But isn't that the underlying philosophy of all human exploration? You're pushing yourself to somewhere you shouldn't be.
It's the old mountain climber quote, because it's there.
Yeah.
And also, what are you hiding?
What kind of weird fish can I look at?
Yeah, that's what it's about. I mean, Don Walsh from Trieste, he used to come with us on a couple of the jobs. He died a few years ago, unfortunately, but he used to always talk about exploration as just curiosity acted upon. So you see something, you go, I'd quite like to know what's there. And there's those people who would quite like to know what's there, so they read about it, or they watch a movie about it, or they think about it. And there's those people who go, I'm going there, right? I am going. You can't stop me. That's the explorer, right?
So kind of piggybacking off of that, what do you think is the kind of person who becomes a deep sea explorer? Or like, you have your experience of like getting to where you are and getting to these missions. Would you say that that is kind of typical of the type of person who does these kinds of dives? Or like, do people get there through a whole bunch of different ways? Like, who takes on this job? Who is the person who decides I'm going to the bottom of the ocean?
I think there's some really easy, basic responses to that. And there are people who are hell of a claustrophobic, right? And sometimes we do this thing, and I shouldn't say this in public, but sometimes we get the new guys on the ship or new people who have come on, and we say, do you want to see inside the sub? And they go, oh yeah, that'd be cool. And you're going under pretense of you're just familiarizing them with it. What you're actually doing is seeing how they respond when you shut the hatch. And there's quite a few people like, I just don't like this. I don't like this. And you go, oh, you're not diving. But I mean, the people who do, they are of a certain disposition. I think it's the curiosity and the excitement of, I've spent my life studying this thing, and now I can see it with my own eyes. Yeah. And I think that's it. I was a little bit further ahead. I was one of the first, other than the owner at the time. The sub used to be called The Limiting Factor, and we did this thing with Victor Vescovo and went around the world. And so I was diving in sub before the current wave of scientists did it. And I had an advantage because I was classically trained as an engineer. I came into marine biology designing gear to go to that depth. So when it comes to trusting the engineering, you can look at these things. I understand O-rings. I understand tolerances. I understand the DNV pressure test cycles and all that kind of stuff. Whereas I do see other people who don't have that background and they're like, hell yeah, I'll dive. And you're like, really? Okay, all right. You know, I mean, it's cool. It's fine. But...
Yeah, and like you can trust the design, but you as an engineer are able to like look at the math and say like, okay, this makes sense. Someone else is just like, well, I trust the engineer did a good job, or this thing has survived X number of dives already.
Yeah.
Are there people who get into this work? So like astronauts, for example, a lot of astronaut applicants, people who don't make it in will still find their way into working, like continuing to push the bounds of the field of space exploration. Not putting myself in that bucket, but like I would be horrible at going into space. I would give anything to do it, but I'm horrible. I'm kind of claustrophobic. I don't handle stress well, and I don't get along well with others for extended periods of time. I would be a terrible astronaut. Are there people in the field who like can't handle dives, but still, keep kind of pushing it, keep wanting to be involved and whatnot? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's two parts to it, right? So the person in the sub is not the purpose of the dive. The purpose of the dive is to collect data. And that's either animals or, in our case, mostly a lot of video, still images and stuff like that. We're trying to catalog everything that's there. Okay. And the reason why we use a sub and not a remote system with a cable on it is because the cable itself is really difficult. Actually, having something tethered to the ship 11 kilometers above it is actually much harder than just going down in a sub.
Okay.
But I would say there's a great deal to be learnt about that environment by being there and seeing it with your own eyes. There's a certain degree of intuition and hunch and landscape. I mean, I think it's fair to say that, you think about one of the most beautiful landscapes, like think about, Yosemite National Park or something like that. And it's like, is it better to see it in person, or is it better to just look at it in National Geographic?
Yeah.
Which one? I mean, it is better, right? You can't, and it's called phenomenology, and it's a feeling of awe that you can't quantify, but you're like, that was better. I understand this better, and I don't know why. I just do.
And that you're picking up more details. You're more likely to be able to notice, like if you, I have to imagine once you're down there, a fair amount of the exploration is noticing something interesting and going to investigate, which is tougher to do over a monitor.
Oh, definitely. There's little things like, I don't know why, but I think that, because we've got floodlights on the front of the sub, and you're driving into the darkness, right? You're driving a Land Rover through a forest type of thing, and you see these things, and you're going to make the call pretty quick. It's like, is that worth steering a little bit over to the port side to have a look at, or is that one? And I think you get that instinct, that hunch is much greater from being in the sub than it would have been from 6 guys in a container on the deck, just watching loads of monitors. And so there is that.
And you do bring up another good comparison with space there, which is that most of an astronaut's day-to-day work is not actually things that they have specifically trained for. So, like, there's a whole bunch of hardware, there's a whole bunch of test equipment on the ISS, and scientists on the ground, international scientists, will have time slots. They will basically have, they will book an astronaut for a certain amount of time to work on a certain piece of hardware, and they will walk the astronaut through that, during which time the astronaut is basically just there to be the person who pushes the buttons, and then they send the data down. Relating, like you mentioned that a lot of the research at the bottom was sending back the camera feeds. Do you guys ever get asked to put like third-party scientific payloads on the submarines?
Yeah, I mean, the data we collect gets used by a lot of people. It's not like if I dive in the sub, that's my video, that's my data. I mean, it comes back to our research group, and other people pick through it and they annotate everything. And then we can feed off that for years, doing interesting statistical models and all the rest of it. But we have a bunch of putting stuff on the sub is a little bit tricky, because the regulations and the classifications are so strict that you can't just go and bolt something on, right? That's not going to work. But
just drilling right into the side of the hull.
Yeah, we have 3 landers as well. So the landers they just free fall at the bottom and they do stuff on their own, and then we just tell them to drop a weight and they come back up. So they're the kind of dumb ones, but they're nice instrument packages. So quite often people will come with something, and we'll fit it to those, and we'll get them access to that. So yeah, it's at any given time there's probably only 5 scientists on the ship, but there's probably about 50 feeding off that data at some point.
Okay, cool. And are those, like, whenever it comes to a research group, is there, like, do people rotate through diving staff, or are there some people who are the kind of divers?
At the moment, there's a few of us who do most of the dives.
Okay.
And that's in part because there's other things to do, right? It's not necessarily a sort of hierarchical thing of Top Guns and all the rest of it. It's just that every dive is a privilege, and every dive is very expensive. Someone's paying for that somewhere, right? And so it's about getting the best out of every single dive. And so what I normally do is if we were going for 3 weeks, I would probably do the first couple of dives to make sure everything's as I would like it, and then you the next person on the chain, you give them a dive and see how they get on, and they'll do another one, and you slowly just tease them in rather than just being like, hey, anyone who wants to dive, let's just do it. Because if they go down, everyone's first dive isn't very good in terms of the quality of the images they get back, because it takes a little bit of time. So you've got to try and water that down so that you don't go out for 3 weeks and every single dive is subpar.
You have to balance out the quality of the data that you're getting while still training up new people, because if you just went one, like, maximum quality all the time, then you only ever use the most experienced people. No, okay, that makes sense. And that is a lot of how...
But also, it serves the purpose as well, because there's been times, certainly during COVID, when hardly anyone could travel. When I was on the ship, and I think we did 6 dives in 10 days, and it's exhausting.
Jesus.
It's like doing 6 long-haul flights in a ball in 10 days. And so it's not even a case of I want to do all the dives. It's like, I would like to share this responsibility with someone else. There are a few of us who do them regularly, but there is a degree of, after you've done, let's say, 2 or 3 in a week, you're like, nah, I'll just sit and have
starting to feel burned out.
Have a nice cup of coffee as well.
Burnout has to be real.
I was going to ask a question of like, what is the fatigue rate like? Like, when does burnout happen if it does? I mean,
I wouldn't say it was necessarily burnout. I think when you come off a dive, this is we're going back to who are the types of people who do this, right? It's not the people who do a dive, and if something goes wrong, they freak out. We've had a couple of dives where there's been a noise we haven't been able to explain, or we've had a little bit of water come through a hatch or something like that, right? And I didn't know this until I started doing this, but my character is I don't freak out at all. I go the opposite way. You just shut down and you go, okay, right, listen, and use all power to the ears, and you're trying to work. You're systematically going through, could it be this, could it be this, could it be this.
Right.
You know, is it worth aborting the dive for? Is it not? And Pyle and I will sit there in the dark saying, okay, da 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 da. And there's been times where we've bailed and we've like, no, I don't like that. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. So let's just go.
Gotcha.
And then you come back off the sub and you're sitting on the boat, and quite often tradition is you go up to the captain and you shake his hand for bringing you back and all the rest of it. And then about an hour later, you're like, oh my God, what happened there?
It finally settles in.
Yeah. Or alternatively, you have a great dive and it's brilliant and you've seen all this cool stuff and you've got packs full of data and everything else, but because you're in the zone, you're neither up nor down. You're just focused. You're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, and then you find yourself going to bed that night and you go, I was 11 kilometers under the ship today, and we saw X, Y, and Z, and those images are like literally on my phone. That's so cool, right? And then suddenly you're like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing, right? And so there's a sort of weird delay in terms of processing power, I think.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily burnout per se. It's after a while, it's more like they're long days, and it takes a little bit of pumping yourself back up to go, right, let's do another one. Where I think is 1 or 2 a week is enough.
Okay. And that is, to your credit, a long day where you have to be like on the ball the whole time.
Yeah.
Like that, like just the mental fatigue of being on the ball, focused on the job, on the mission through that entire time, or being on the lookout for any kind of like problems, anomalies, failures, anything like that could happen. Because I have to imagine that all of the problems that could happen are not going to have a very obvious, flashing alarm or a little bit of water coming through. There might, like, whenever you guys are on a dive, are you doing regular kind of like status checks on the submarine? Like, okay, cool.
The safety features of the sub there's internals and externals. So the internal ones there's a dead man's alarm. So it buzzes every 15 minutes and you have to push it.
Okay.
And that sends a ping back to the ship and says, so we have an underwater telephone, so we can talk to the surface. It's not great, but you can voice call. And so the idea is we have to give our depth, our heading, and our life support status every 30 minutes. And every 50 minutes in between, you have to push the alarm so it says that you're definitely there. And if for whatever reason we miss 2 in a row, they will dump our weights for us. Right? They will just go, something's not right.
Oh, they have the manual control.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And I think if they don't even do that, the sub then goes, no, something's not right here. And the sub will make the decision to abort if you don't keep pushing that button. So there is that. And but we're in regular contact.
Gotcha.
We've got a little text messaging system there as well. So if there are any little niggly problems, you can use a kind of very simplified code of saying, thruster on starboard side a bit, something or whatever it may be, and whatnot. So there are comms. The safety features on the outside, you spoke earlier about Alvin sinking. If anything goes wrong, and the biggest fear for any sub, I think, at the moment is not implosion. It's probably more like long lining cables that have been discarded by fishermen. Or troll nets or something you can get snagged in, right? And so we go twice as deep as anybody else. So there's no one's going to come and rescue you. So we have to assume every dive we do, you have to have a 96-hour window of good weather to give it a chance to figure out what's going on. So there's enough life support and enough water in the sub for 96 hours. Not that anyone, why the hell you'd ever want to do that. But then what we do is we can break up the submarine from the inside. So we can drop the manipulator on, we can just jettison it off the front, we can jettison the battery components on both sides, we can jettison the thrusters. So if you get tangled in something, you basically start to for everything you break apart, the more uncomfortable your ascent back to the surface is going to be, right? The more, but at least you're alive, right? But we've never had to do that. So they have thought of everything. You can basically break it apart like a Lego sub.
Wow.
And ultimately, it's just the buoyancy in the sphere that comes back.
I had not expected the modularity of the design like that. And if you are able to like pop these pieces off, does that mean that those pieces can also be swapped with other, like say you have a manipulator arm that can be popped out of its socket? Are there ever missions where you would want to swap that arm for a different kind of manipulator, a different kind of like
Yeah, you could
grabber?
do, yeah.
Okay, cool.
You could, yeah. It's all very, very modular. So we have things like a suction sampler, which is like a vacuum cleaner, sits on the front. If you want to use that, you install it and you suck up little animals in the chambers. Or if you don't want the arm, you can take it off. It's the weight budget. So another similarity with space is probably aside from all the environmental issues, it's just the weight budget. How much stuff can you actually carry with you? And so we don't have huge ones. But if we were to take a real big, dirty 8K camera, for example, we would probably have to lose the arm.
Okay.
Just because we've probably only got about a 30 kilogram wiggle room in there. And so, yeah.
Gotcha.
Similar thing. Payload. Yeah.
All right. Makes sense. Considering that, like you said, you are an engineer as well as working on marine biology, I was hoping you could speak a little bit to some of the design considerations of a deep sea submersible. Considering that you just talked about mass considerations in space, spacecraft are designed to be as thin as possible, so you will have a hull of like a couple of millimeters of aluminum. Could you talk about some of the design considerations for, the extreme depths? Like,
yeah, I mean, you have to factor in it's a huge safety factor. So if you assume maximum ocean depth for us would be 11,000 meters, I think it's 14 or 15,000 meters or something you have to test to. So you're putting a real big chunk of safety factor on there, which is normal. Other design features, obviously, life support. So we have CO2 scrubbers underneath the seats. So that takes away your CO2. And we've got oxygen coming in from tanks, which is the same type of oxygen regulation system you'll get in intensive care, right? And there's various alarms that says if it's going too high or going too low, you just adjust them. And everything is built in parallel. So everything on pilot side is replicated on my side, if you like. So if there's what's the word? If his fails, there's another one, right?
Okay.
And there are independent oxygen sensors as well, which are not tied to the main sub. So if one of those goes off, you might realize it's just layers upon layers of safety stuff. And then if the CO2 goes too high for some reason, there's this really cool thing that maybe they've got in space as well. I don't know. It's called a lithium curtain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
it comes in a coat hanger. I didn't know this. I mean, we've only deployed it once, and it was when I was at the bottom of Mariana with this guy, and the CO2 went a little bit high. And I was like, well, how do you get rid of CO2? And he's like, a lithium curtain. I'm like, what in the hell is a lithium curtain? And you pull this thing out, and you just hang it from the top of the sub, like an old shirt. Yeah. And it just rips all the CO2 out of the atmosphere. Almost, it was amazing. I have no idea what kind of chemistry just happened in front of me right there. But
yes, some kind of weird yeah. It's catalyzing. It's doing something. It's probably you're probably definitely going to have to throw it away after because it's making some kind of hellish chemicals. But
and for the love of God, do not ever let it touch water. Whatever you do.
Oh, great place to put lithium underwater.
I did hear that they're a complete nightmare to get rid of once they've been deployed.
Oh.
Like, they're just a real pain. It's very expensive to dispose of them, But
yeah.
But I mean, the design considerations. The one thing I don't think we're very good at is regulating the temperature inside. There's never going to be aircon. We've played around with some little heating units, but they don't even make a dent, right? The whole thing is now freezing. So I think it's more to do with regulating your clothes, as having things unzipped as you go in, and then when it gets cold, you start to zip up. You put the hats on, the Ugg boots, and all the rest of it. I don't. So the problem with our sub is it's designed to go mega deep where it's really cold. And there was a couple of dives we did in the Red Sea around the start of COVID. And the Red Sea is famous because it's 14 degrees even on the bottom. So even at 2,000 meters, it's 14 degrees. And then suddenly we realized that this sub is great for going to cold places and you keeping yourself warm. When we came out that thing in the Red Sea, it looked like it was giving birth. I mean, it was like, the guys are like, what happened? Did the hatch leak? Why are you so wet? And you're like, oh no, this all came from me. This is me. This is all 100% me. This like, it was, I think it was 42 Celsius in the sphere by the end of the dive.
Oh my God.
That is hellish.
That's pushing the limits.
Yeah, we're talking about a health hazard at that point.
Yeah, so the temperature regulation from an engineering point of view, I think something we're just kind of ignoring now and just going with clothes. The right clothes.
So something with space exploration is that, especially at first, it took a long time for anything approaching crew comfort to ever be considered. So like the first spacecraft, they're going up for very short periods of time. The first astronauts are all universally like hotshot test pilots who don't care if they die, so of course they don't care if they're uncomfortable. But eventually you get like space stations, you start realizing that like people perform better if you keep them comfortable. In the history, in the development of submersibles, like have you seen a movement towards more crew comfort on like an engineering side in terms of keeping people not just alive, but warm, keeping them cooled off if they're too hot, stuff like that? Like, is there a movement in that direction now that the keeping them alive stuff has mostly been figured out?
So I've seen a lot of people talk about comfort. I'm not necessarily. This is quite poignant because the guy who designed the sub is a guy called John Ramsey, and I hope he listens to this because now's my opportunity to remind them something. Is of all the technology we have in this multi-million-dollar submarine and all the dives that we do, the amount of foam on my seat is like millimeters thick. And by the end of it, you've got a really sore ass. And it's like, of all the money we're spending on this, like it's $1 million a month going out on this thing. And
Just a centimeter or two more foam.
can you not
please?
just put a cushion or something on there? Like,
Just a white lawn chair.
But I mean, the safety regulations are so strict that whatever it is that goes in there has to go through testing. So it has to make sure it's non-flammable, it doesn't produce any sort of chemical or rest of it. It's like, but can I not just, rather than give me 5 mils of foam, could you give me like a couple of inches?
Yeah,
right? That's all I ask. That's all I ask.
The foam's already past cert. We already know that the foam is good. Just give me more of it.
Just give me a lot more. Give me another 25 of those, please, and I'll stop complaining. And he still hasn't done it yet. So
just casually smuggling in the liner from like a patio chair inside your pants into the sub.
I mean, it wouldn't take much to make it slightly more comfortable. So at the end of it, you're not sitting there and all you can feel is the bones of your own pelvis.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, you're just having to do the shimmy back and forth going, can we get back on board the fucking ship, please?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, I don't, in terms of comfort though, I mean, the current sub we've got, I think ultimately we're looking into building bigger ones, which should be more comfortable because you get more, just being able to move your legs would be nice. The one we've got just now just does not have the real estate for comfort, I don't think.
An extra meter of diameter.
So less something that just hasn't been considered and more something that the engineering constraints of the design don't really make it possible. You physically don't have enough room to stretch your legs.
Yeah. I mean, the difference between the biggest sort of luxury in the sub is probably Ugg boots.
Okay.
Because they're fur-lined, right, and they're warm. That's probably it. That's probably your difference between comfort and discomfort.
All right. Kind of coming off of that a bit, and I'm not asking you to put your submersible or the person who designed it on blast or anything. In the community, is there submersible envy and pity? Like, are there some teams that you look at and you either wish that you had their top-of-the-line sub or that you pity them for their 40-year-old Cold War relic?
Oh, well, Japan, it's like playing trump cards, right? You've got different elements of that. You look at Alvin and you see these people lying down. I mean, lying down, looking at the viewport, you're like, wow, they're lying down. That's amazing. And you look at ours, you're like, no one's lying down, right? But then they probably look at us and go, these guys are going to 11,000 meters, right? And so it's ours can go twice as deep as anybody else, right?
Wow.
But it does not have the scientific payload that they have. So they can do way more stuff. They can take corals and rock samples and all these animals and do all this experimental stuff whilst lying down, but they can only do it to half depth.
Gotcha.
So it's that kind of trade-off is like, I would love to go and dive in Alvin or go and dive in Nautil or, the big French one or Shinkai, Japan or something like that. But we primarily want to go mega deep. So you got to make sacrifices to go that extra bit. So ultimately the getting a 3-person submarine with a big real estate, getting down 11,000 meters with a full scientific payload would be great. But at the moment, it's cost and engineering challenges for that.
Gotcha. And it kind of has, I guess that does make sense to have different submersibles that can do kind of different roles, different depths and whatnot, because if everyone could just, like, whenever it comes to, okay, my cat is getting in the way at this point. Yes, go away, kitty.
Be gone, creature.
Yeah, it basically makes sense to have different specialties within subs so that And maybe eventually down the line, there will be the engineering allowances and development such that like you can have a full scientific payload and a lie down and be able to reach, like those kinds of depths that your sub currently can. Dumb question, dumber than most of my questions. Submarines are generally called, submarines like the military kind are generally called boats. Does that apply to submersibles as well?
I think it depends if you're speaking to Americans or not.
Okay.
I've never quite figured out. So the company who built this submersible call themselves submarines, but then at the same time what they don't like is calling them subs, because the association of subs are big military subs.
Okay.
Right. So a submersible versus a submarine, I'm never quite sure what's the difference, but I've heard some Americans call it a boat, which I don't think it is.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
either.
that's making me think of like a Typhoon class or something.
Yeah, so the terminology of these things is quite funny, because our organization started off with, for some reason, the captain and the crew and myself, and there was a disproportionately large number of Scottish people on board, and then the sub team were all very, very American, and they had their words for things and stuff like that, and they had I remember the captain, who was Scottish, kept getting annoyed because the guys from Florida kept referring to the point where you deploy the submarine as the drop zone. And he's going, I'll get you in the drop zone. And it's like, stop calling it the drop zone. Nothing's getting dropped today, okay?
Crew arriving at the DZ. Like, stop talking like that. We're going to lower you gently into the water.
This is going to be really boring. We wanted this to be the most boring deployment of a submarine ever,
Yes.
right? That's what we're shooting for. There's no drop zones, right? We're not throwing you out of a Hercules. But
I mean, it's still the zone where you're going down, though. You drop it.
I mean,
Cool, it's the down zone then.
Oh, okay, yeah. So for context, I'm Canadian and both of the Chris's are American, so I think you may have hit a nerve insulting their national
I have
pride.
no nerve to be hit.
I think calling a submarine a boat is asinine, personally.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Our chances of getting H.I. Sutton on have just plummeted.
Boats stay on the surface, they float. Submarines are discretionary in whether they float or not.
I had a ship can deploy a boat. That's the difference between a boat and a ship. A ship has boats on it.
Okay, so like a Zodiac or a Rib could be considered a
or
boat.
a tender
Okay.
or something like that. So that's what gets you to the ship category. But I would still say the boats need to stay on the surface.
Gotcha.
Agreed.
You mentioned being able to deploy kind of like robotic would those be considered ROVs? I think you called them landers or something similar.
We'll call them landers. ROVs
Okay.
is because they're remotely operated. These are not. So these you set them all up to go and you just drop them into the sea and they just go straight down, crash land, do a lot of stuff, use a lot of bait. So a lot of the big animals come to you.
Okay.
And you're looking at the habitat, and you can cover a much greater distance by deploying a whole bunch of them. But you only get a single snapshot, but you get it over a much greater distance, whereas the sub's very slow.
Gotcha.
And at the end of the dive, you send it an acoustic signal, which is unique to that particular lander, and you say, okay, drop your weights. And it floats back to the surface. You download it, and then you see what you get. So you have no real-time comms, really.
Okay. And you mentioned sending down bait. Like what kind of deep sea creatures are you hoping to kind of get pictures or info on through
Mostly fish.
Okay.
Yeah, so we discovered the deepest fish in the world, I don't know how many times in a row. There was no one else in that league. So we just kept breaking our own records. So we've got the Guinness World Record for it now. So when you get down really deep,
Wow.
between 6,000 and 8,500 meters, you have snailfish, which are not what people think of when they think of the deepest fish in the world. They're probably thinking black and fangs and little eyes, and the snailfish are kind of pink and gelatinous and a bit stupid looking.
Okay.
But then you go up to 3,000 to 6,000 meters and you get the grenadiers, which are a bit more gnarly looking. They're sort of, potentially 100 years old and sort of roaming around the episode ends.
Yeah, that is a weird looking little guy.
Oh, listener, look up a snailfish right now. Whatever you're doing, wherever you're listening to this, look up a snailfish right now. That actually, it actually looks pretty cute. I love its little nose bumps.
Yeah, that's us. Yeah, my aunt snailfish, we discovered that a few years back, 10 years ago.
Wow.
And the other one is a grenadier.
Yes. Or a deep sea rat tail. Sometimes they get called rat tails. But
Oh,
so these are the things that turn up very, very quickly.
Does that indicate, I guess that could indicate either them being good at detecting prey, or does that mean that they have a high population down there such that they just, like, certain ones just kind of lock into the food.
In deep sea, generally, the further away you get from the surface, the less food there is. So beyond about 500 meters depth, you're looking at only 1% remains that was on the surface. And so the number of scavengers goes quite high. So, or at least non-specialist feeding. So you put down any old nonsense and these guys will turn up within half an hour and start eating it because they have to, right? They live in an unbelievably food-sparse environment that they have to eat anything they can get hold of.
They cannot afford to be picky.
Exactly, yeah.
Sweet. And the cat is coming to bother me in my pop filter. Oh, wonderful. Paisley, go away. Sorry about that. We are a professional operation. This does not happen every single time.
It does. She's part of the show, Quinn.
Yeah, and she's been media trained better than this. And she never speaks into the mic when I want her to.
Yeah, at least say something, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, if I come over here, maybe if I'm further away.
Oof.
Yeah, nothing. Tragic.
That could have been a death. It looked like a death stare from here.
Yeah, I feel like, maybe she just knows and is... Well, if she's really annoyed by me doing this, she could simply leave, but she doesn't want to. I would like to kind of cap this off with a couple of questions getting into kind of deep sea kind of mishaps, disasters, failures. With our show, we talk about all kinds of different kind of failures. They're not always the the Challenger explosion or Soyuz 1. They're not always the big lethal ones.
Yeah.
But insofar as like when we're covering space history, disasters often come down to simple, easily missed failures that are often representative of like systemic problems. So like we talked about before, a worker messing up indicates a QA, like quality assurance system, that can't catch the problem because human errors always happen. Stuff is very rarely just the cause of one person messing up.
Yeah.
In your experience or in the history of deep sea exploration, like when problems happen, do they happen for similar reasons? Like have trends popped up, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I think when it comes to the actual manned submersibles, it's not really that. I mean, Titan's a different thing, right? But normal manned submersibles, I don't think there's any real huge, useful examples of that. In other aspects of deep sea, when people are deploying cameras or troll nets or towed things or moorings and all these, there's 100 different ways you can collect data from deep sea. And quite often those are not big. Sometimes they are, but they're not often necessarily big engineering savvy institutes. It's a bunch of random scientists who've got probably 50% of the funding they actually need to pull this off. And I think every deep sea scientist has had the moment where their gear comes back on deck and it's full of water, right? And it's just one of those things because you can't afford to go testing this stuff. You can't.
Yeah.
The thing that annoys me most about marine science is when you're asking the government for money, you do not get R&D money. You don't get money to build it twice. You get money to build exactly one once.
Oh.
It's really unforgiving, right? So we've had cases where we've built a whole lander that cost maybe $200,000 and taken it out and it's imploded, and you'll never know why. Because if it doesn't come back to the surface, it's either stuck at the bottom.
You're not recovering testing. You're not. Yeah.
Yeah. It's gone, right? It's not. If you pull the quick release, it sinks, and you never see it again. And you're like, well, you can. There's a few things you can do with some acoustics to see if it's still alive and whatever. If it's, but I mean, the nature of the deep sea is you don't necessarily know a lot of things. Like we've been places where the sediment, the seafloor is so soft. If you drop gear down onto it, it just goes straight in by about a meter. And you hope that it's so soft that when you release the weights, it just pulls back out again. But there are times where we assume that it's not. And so, but you don't know that till you go. Mm-hmm. Or you go there and you think it's a flat seafloor and you find you've just pummeled your gear down a cliff face.
Wow.
Right? So it's like, and what's quite cool is sometimes you get the video back and you go, okay, everything works. And you take the camera inside, you take the SD card out, you look at it and you go, oh my God, we just threw this thing sideways down a cliff. And it, but we've got it back, right? Which makes for a really cool video. But at the same time, you're like, okay, right.
Christ.
All right, it seems to be in a flat spin. It seems to be falling down a hill.
Yeah. One of my best ones is I deployed a lander in the Puerto Rico Trench once at 6,000 meters. I mean, it's called a lander, and we managed to get it to land 3 times in one dive. Because it hit the seafloor, then it suddenly stopped and then slid backwards. And then fell off a cliff, and you can see this cliff racing past it, and it stopped again on a ledge. I mean, like, okay, that's weird. And then you can see it slipping backwards. And then it
It
went
just
again.
starts to rotate again and again.
Just incredible comedic timing on this lander as it like slowly pitches backward over the cliff.
Yeah. But that's part of the job, right? You can do mapping, you can use acoustics to tell you the shape of the seafloor, but you not to that resolution. And so that a few mistakes are not necessarily mistakes. It's just the nature of what we're doing is we're pummeling gear into an environment we don't know.
Yeah.
And most of the time, touch wood, we get away with it. And sometimes you're like, wow, this is very, very different to what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then you just have to sort of readjust your thinking and whatnot. And so, but I think we've all had an implosion. I think everyone will have something that's come back flat that used to be round, or alternatively filled with water. A lot of the times, actually, going through my career, the most amount of gear I've probably lost has gone through the ship's propeller.
Oh.
Just on recovery?
Yep, just a ship running it down. Yep, because in the high seas you've got stuff in the water that's moving around, and you get what we call hungry ships. Hungry ships are the ones where if there's something floating in the water, if you get close enough to it, the way in which the props are designed and the hull's designed, it wants to eat it, and it would just go.
Everything gets channeled right into the prop.
So you're trying to get it hooked up on the crane. It gets a little too close to the back of the ship and just gets sucked right in.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have those problems much anymore because since we got involved in the sub, we don't have any ropes anymore because they're just the enemy of anything like that. So, but back in the day when we were using Japanese vessels or New Zealand vessels or German vessels, everything was on like ropes and moorings, and so we had quite a few would suddenly just accelerate very quickly on the surface, and you go, I know what's doing that. And then you just hear bang, 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 both.
Yep.
And that's it. 3 years worth of work is just gone. So
yeah, you're not getting that SD card back.
Nah. Yeah, it's the hungry propellers.
It's lost to the deep.
Yep.
I think a pretty salient comparison there on the space side is specifically trying to land robotic missions on the moon. So one thing that on the space side holds true, and I think from what you've said holds true in deep sea, is that having people on board is higher risk, it's higher cost, but it also lends itself to like a person being there is able to react faster and address problems better on site than either an automated probe or someone looking at a monitor way up on the surface. And specifically, any attempts to land, like there has been no failure aside from Apollo 13 to like land humans on the moon, but landing robotic probes on the moon has something like a 70% failure rate. And in 2023, there was a period where like 7 different landers were launched and 5 of them failed. Specifically stuff like the famous killer for moonlanders is just kind of falling over. Like they'll land properly, but they'll either land on a cliff, on a hill, or they will just kind of hit a rock weird and wind up on their side, and the mission is dead at that point.
And the ground crew just gets to watch the telemetry of an angle constantly increasing until it suddenly hits a point.
and then suddenly your solar panels are covered in dust.
Wasn't there a famous story in the Apollo 11 when Neil Armstrong was about to land the lunar module? In the very last few seconds, he went, I don't think so, and just moved a little bit.
And this is kind of similar to what you talk about with the resolution of like the I guess the sonar cartography of the area. The original area that they had picked to land Apollo 11 based on the scans that they had of the moon, they thought it was a perfectly flat field, and Neil gets a couple of minutes down from landing and sees that it's actually this giant field covered in house-sized boulders.
Yeah.
So like right at the last minute, they have to fly somewhere else, and they have I can't remember the exact figure, but they have very little fuel left in the tank whenever they land.
Yeah.
And just another one of those situations that like were that an automated craft, it would have just followed the plan and it would have smashed into a boulder and probably failed.
That's a great example of that intuition, that hunch, right? There's the justification for having someone in there.
Gotcha.
It's like, I don't like that. I do not like that. Right, so let's just move on. Yeah,
yes.
So.
And especially where like, if you're going to the moon, if you're going to the bottom of the sea, communications links are not always reliable. So you could lose comms at a bad time, or you just have to trust the probe to be able to fly itself, or kind of what is the verb? Because dive, I imagine, is going down. Like, does a probe drive horizontally? Like, what would be the verb for navigating around?
Depends what pilot you've got on.
I
don't
guess
think there's
that's
any
fair.
formal- Yeah, we just call it driving around.
Okay.
Although we're not driving, I suppose. Do you have to have wheels to be driving? Or-
I'm not certain of, like, I feel like some part of me wants to say, like, we're just tootling around on the bottom, but that feels kind of demeaning.
I remember some submarines having wheels on them, like
Some do, yeah.
NR1.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would wager that I think drive is fair because it would have to be something that's driven. So
Yeah.
you're being driven by a propeller or something like that, you know?
But I think some people talk about flying this up. And so then you've got, well, are you driving or flying? Because surely one's wheels and one's wings, and this is just floating. So are we steering it?
Whenever you get to the bottom with a submersible, like, what is the... I guess this may be down to preference of pilots or different submersibles. Like, at what altitude, quote unquote, are you hovering above the surface in order to, like...
I like to keep it at about half a meter.
Okay.
Real close.
Nice.
Really close. and the problem there is it's just the vehicle is so big it creates a bow wave, right? And the sediments at depth are really, really fine. So you find yourself, you've always got this what we call the dust cloud behind you.
Okay.
And if you stop, it'll eventually come under your sub and then obscure your field of view. So the trick with the pilots is when you get to the bottom, you're trying to work out which way is the prevailing current and move into it. So it's always pushing the stuff away from you.
Yep.
And you try to sort of never really stop moving. I think as soon as you stop, it just engulfs you. It's so fine, especially down the real deep ones, the 10,000 meter plus. That is honestly, if you disturb the bottom and kick it up, there's no point waiting for it to clear. It could take an hour.
Okay.
It just goes poof, and it hangs, and it just hangs and hangs and hangs. You're like, oh well, let's just go.
Yeah.
And so, so when we talk about driving it, it's not like in the movies where you're actually driving this thing. All you're doing is nudging it left and right, just very delicately nudging. You're going super slow because you want to get the best imagery.
Yep.
And it's not built for speed. And they are in the Meg 2, I believe. The Meg 2, the Trench, had some submersibles in there which were quite incredible. I don't know how they got to that speed and maneuverability, but
okay. So that was going to be my next question, and you pretty well answered it, of like, are you ever driving around on the bottom and suddenly surprised by, I don't know, a rock face or something? However, it sounds like you're going slow enough that you're not really getting jump scared by anything.
No, you don't get jump scared. You just don't move that fast. And we've got a scanning sonar as well, so any big objects, we have obstacle avoidance. So we've got our little sonar in the middle of the spear in front of us, and it just sweeps back and forward, and it'll tell you if there's a big ridge coming up or there's boulder field, or it just. And so you don't want surprises in a submarine.
Absolutely makes sense.
It's a no surprise zone. Right.
Let us have the most boring dive possible.
We want as little excitement.
Yeah. Well, this is it, right? I mean, the captains talk about this, and they talk about the most boring operations on the ship are the best.
Yeah,
because the exciting operations means that a rope is snapped or someone or whatever. It's like that's
it
what
leads to paperwork and worse.
Yes, yeah. So it's as boring as possible. Like, come on, lads, let's just do this and let's make this the most unforgettable day ever. And that means everyone's done their job correctly if it's completely forgettable.
Sorry, I'm mentally hung up on submarines without wheels on the bottom. And if any of them have had power wheel or wheels that are powered as a means of, actually driving along the bottom.
There are ROVs that have tracks, cable laying ROVs. Like we're talking through a deep sea cable right now.
Well, leading to the conclusion of the asinine question I was going to ask, what nation has performed the first burnout at the bottom of the seafloor?
First burnout?
Yeah.
I guess like a hard drift.
Or just, spinning the wheels. Burnout is probably not the
I mean, the
word
seafloor is it's like mud plus, though.
Or the equivalent thereof.
I mean, the big cable laying ROVs, and the Japanese have a little ROV called Abysmo, ABISMO, and it's got little tank treads on it.
Oh,
because the tank if you're going to drive on soft mud, you need tank treads. Wheels would be terrible. They'd be very bad.
Were I in the deep sea vehicle design, I would not name my ROV anything approaching the word abysmal.
No, you're naming it Abysmo. This thing is fantastic.
They were Japanese, and they should have consulted with someone.
Yeah. I dub the Invincible 2.
Yes.
It just means, well, yeah, Quinn, because you still have Invincible one. That's why.
Well, okay, yeah.
Now you have two Invincibles.
I'm seeing so many things or so many delightful little vehicles tonight that I never would have otherwise.
There's some really cool stuff out there. There's some really
Oh,
cute
yeah.
little vehicles kicking around, and there's some real big monsters as well.
It's a 2-part vehicle. That is so cool. That is neat as hell.
Do you mean 2-part as in like modular, or that it can separate into 2 entire vehicles?
No, it has a I don't know how else
It's
to call it,
called
but
the
a
launcher.
launcher. Yeah, that then
Yeah, it's called the launcher. They lower it down right to the bottom, and then the little vehicle comes off.
and then the track
Yeah.
vehicle comes off.
Okay, cool. So it can deploy like a sub drone, or sorry, yeah.
The little one's umbilical to the launcher, so it's got a really
Gotcha.
small light cable, and then the launcher has the big heavy duty cable up to the ship. So
Gotcha.
you've got the delicacy and the sort of what's the word, discretion of the little vehicle, but you actually have this big 3-ton monster supporting it.
Wow. Okay, absolutely another space comparison there of all kinds of planetary and moon landers that will have a large base station and then deploy a little rover off of it.
Hmm.
Of just, yeah, having that modularity, having a large support network nearby, and then keeping your actual on-the-ground research, I guess, footprint as small as possible so as not to disturb things.
Like having the satellite in orbit for communication, a rover on the ground, and then in some cases even a tertiary platform of something like the
Yeah.
Mars copter.
Oh, yeah, fair, good point. So I do have one last question, and this one, it starts off framed probably as a question that you have heard a lot. It relates to Titan. However, I would like to kind of, based on what you've said so far, reframe it more about the perceptions of the industry and kind of ways that you see that changing. So you have mentioned early on that kind of the industry does not see the Titan failure as being representative because it's, you know, like you said, it's a whole operation put together by cowboys with just so many failures along the way that, like, it was, you know, doomed to failure, and that it happened at a depth that any competently put together submersible can dive well past. However, it seems like a lot of the public and the media and like kind of general impression seems to have taken it as a mark against the overall deep sea exploration and kind of like submersible industry. Unjustifiably, I would argue. And I think we've kind of covered here. Do you see that being something like, do you see the industry kind of pushing back on that? Do you see that being something that has harmed like
Yes.
funding, impressions, stuff like that? And could you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
I mean, as far as I'm aware, there was a lot of submersibles being produced for cruise liners. And, you know, people on cruise ships could go down to 200 meters or 300 meters, whatever it is. And a lot of those contracts were scrapped because people just didn't want to get in it anymore. They were just scared because of time. Even though the subs they were being offered a jolly out on were nowhere not even in the same league as how stupid that one was, right?
Gotcha.
So
Mm-hmm.
that I'm pretty sure most of the submersible companies in the world took a real hit. I know that. Actually, I know that for a fact. I also know for a fact that there are projects going around with people trying to put a sub back on Titanic to try and prove,
It's safe.
to try and undo it.
Assuming it is not run by an idiot, it's safe.
Yeah. And so I think that there's a bit of a kickback on that. And the big scientific ones, I think, are fine because everyone in that space knows that Titan was stupid. I think where it's killed a lot of the companies is they were getting really good contracts, like I say, supplying them to cruise ships and stuff and making the deep sea more accessible to normal people, which is great, right?
Yes.
If you, I think it was, I better not say which company it was, but if you had 200 meter, 300 meter subs on these things and they could dive twice a day, the number of human beings experiencing the deep sea per year over 10 years is huge, right? And they come back and tell people and show the images and all the rest of it, and you start to unravel this ridiculous perception of what horrible environment is and make it much more accessible, much more pleasant, and a topic of conversation over a cup of coffee, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because of Titan, I think a lot of that's just been canned, and it's now like, no, deep sea is a horrible, scary place, and you're going to implode. So,
gotcha. Yeah. So not as much impact on the scientific side because, kind of like you said, anyone working in marine biology, anyone working in deep sea research already knows this stuff. No one's going to be spooked necessarily by.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
If you watch the Netflix documentary, right, you should be horrified, right? You're like, how did earth did it get this far? And quite a lot of my friends were in that as well, because we were working together at the time.
Gotcha.
Even after I saw it, I texted Rob McCallum, who's the expert on that documentary. I says, "Well done, mate. You know, and it's a difficult thing to talk about, but
Yes.
And he says he said he didn't know half of that until he went to the premiere of it. He's like, wow. So everything he said on that was based on less data than was originally out.
Wow.
Oh,
What would have been nice is to offset that documentary with, this is how they did it. This is how everyone else does it. This is what they did in this bit, and this is what everybody else does, as opposed to, this is not normal, right?
Yes.
it almost sounds like, to simplify it a little bit and to add an element of perhaps maybe stupidity, like in the Chernobyl TV show, having the board and side by side what you should do, what you should not do.
Yeah.
And just the entire what you should not do is just tighten all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that story was just a long chain of mistakes made by one person, as opposed to really explaining in detail why no one else in the world would have done this.
Right.
Right? This is so outlandish and ridiculous. Like carbon fiber under pressure we've known this for years. It's the opposite of carbon fiber. You would never build a sub out of that. It's suicide, right?
And specifically, like, culturally, I think is an important thing as well there, because it's not like people along the way, it's not like they didn't employ professionals, people who knew the standard ways of building these submersibles safely, and who were not, and who were expressing their opinions and warning him over and over and over of, like, this is not going to work. I do not want to sign off on this. I don't want to be legally liable for any of this. Or, like, this is going to get people hurt. Like, just the fact that, I guess, Stockton Rush had it in his head of something you do see in kind of private space to a fair degree, maybe not as much, of this, not just a disregard for the safety regulations or the ways that things are done, but like an active hatred, an active, I am going to do things differently. I will reinvent the wheel because the wheel is stupid.
I mean, the only good thing to come out of it is maybe that attitude might be curbed a little bit.
Yeah.
When something like that happens, he goes, you're starting to talk a lot like this guy. Yeah. Go and watch the documentary. Right?
Yeah, just, what happened to him? I'm going to send you a link to a movie you're going to want to watch.
Yeah,
and then maybe you'll calm your jets a little bit.
Yeah, he was sent on a rapid 3-dimensional search for everyone else who did stupid things on the seafloor.
Oh.
No, I mean, I think that's the only good thing to come out of that story is, like, one, it's kind of ruined the reputation for subs, but if anything, it'll make sub industry even more safer than it already is, and hopefully that attitude won't be accepted anymore, because people knew he was doing it right. It wasn't a secret,
right?
But what do? You can't. He was sitting in a legal space where you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so there was no avenue in which to go, can we stop this guy doing this?
Right.
He can do it if he wants, and he managed to go through every loophole and got away with it. So if that can be shot, then we're laughing. But you're not trying to curb innovation, like he kept saying that. You just got to do it right, do it safely, right?
Yeah. It's like no, you can absolutely innovate this. Same kind of thing with space, where this is an industry that is based on innovation, and where even the slowest, like stereotypical government programs are still constantly innovating and coming up with new technologies and whatnot. But telling someone that they are definitely going to get people killed is stifling their creativity.
Yeah.
Or, just taken as an attack on them personally. I can definitely relate to some of that on the space side. But I think that is about a good place to kind of cap it off there. We have covered talking about kind of the comparisons between space failures and deep sea failures, as well as the human factors of physically existing in a place that really doesn't want you to be there. So, Dr. Alan Jamieson, again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for enlightening us and our listeners on this wonderful field. Is there any place where our listeners can find more of your stuff?
If you want to know more about Deep Sea, there's the Deep Sea podcast, of course. And we have, scientifically, we have YouTube channels and Instagram, normally under @DeepSeaUWA, or just Google Alan Jamieson Deep Sea stuff. It'll probably come up somewhere, I hope.
Sweet. And listener, you will find all of those links down below in the description. I highly recommend you go check them out. Check them out right now. Driving to work, stop, pull over on the highway. Check them out.
But do not operate your radio whilst also driving a car at speed. That's ill-advised.
Yes.
After 7 miles, make sure to depressurize and take a listen to some of his materials.
Listener, if you are noticing a widening crack in the windscreen of your car, go back home. You are too many miles from home.
It's an interesting exercise to work out how many Mariana Trenches you drove in one day. Then you realize it's not that far away. That
could actually be a fun thing I will try that on my next commute to work.
My curiosity. Okay. I know what I must do.
In a similar way, like the ISS is only 400 kilometers up, and space is legally only 100 kilometers away. So it's a decent road trip away.
I have done double that distance in one day. Oh no.
Oh yeah.
You say legally, like we can adversely affect the distance from us to space. I mean,
oh. Do you mean Chris, like legally, as in we could break the law, like we could be in space at a lower altitude?
Like we could break the law or change the law so that the altitude of space is different.
I would like to see someone try and orbit below the legal definition of space. Like trying to do a 95 kilometer orbit would technically be possible for a little while, and then you would just spin into the atmosphere and die.
I think you should do it, but I think you should ignore all classification and all safety margins, and just you should do it through technical innovation, and don't let these people hold you back.
We've had deep sea Stockton Rush.
Yeah.
Yes.
High altitude Stockton Rush.
And not that we wish that on anyone, not that we actually wish that would happen in any way, shape, or form. But I do think you made a decent point of like there is kind of that attitude going on in the space industry of move fast and break things and whatnot. At the very least, the deep sea, that happened early. And like you said, may have put a damper on future kind of impulses to do that. Whereas in space, we have yet to have a private space big stupid failure involving people and deaths. And so it's still kind of the Wild West up there.
Yeah.
It really makes me think about like what would the deep sea be like if it was getting space bucks, Like
Well, I mean, they do have obviously this isn't funded to nearly the same level as the ISS, and somehow I forgot to talk about it up to this point, but things like Sea Lab of like an underwater long duration kind of outpost, one that astronauts are also frequently sent on or volunteer for as a way of kind of like stuffing their resumes and trying to get onto the next flight, basically as like a simulation of living on the space station, like 6 people, tight quarters.
I think you would also have Elon Musk having his, like 7th implosion event.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of like they've got the private space, the rocket launch companies. I'm less worried about like the SpaceX or the Blue Origins with that. I'm more worried about like stratospheric balloons is a big thing, maybe not a big thing, but like a growing thing in space tourism of people who are going to ride a giant weather balloon all the way up to the edge of space and then ride back down on a parachute. And to me, that is pretty scary because there is like, at least with space launch, there is something approaching regulation. Like the government went there first and it wrote the regulations. And now at the very least, the private space companies are following some kind of regulatory body. It is completely the Wild West for like high altitude balloon tourism.
Yeah.
And there is considering that you are falling from the edge of space and you have a parachute. My prior job was working and designing parachutes for 5 years. I know what the failure rates on those things look like, especially if they're done by a company that wants to cut corners and costs. Again, we never wish for any of this stuff, but doing a space failure podcast tends to give us a bit of a not if but when attitude towards these kind of failures, especially with the attitude that companies are taking. Sorry to swing your interview to such a dark subject right at the end.
No, it's good. I'm just imagining another 100 ways to die. But thanks for that.
Oh God.
Listener, call in, send us some messages. Imagine all the different ways people could die.
Just don't. Consider not.
But yeah, again, Doctor, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an absolute blast. All of the links that you suggested will be down below, and we will make sure to send as many listeners your way as possible.
Great. Thanks very much for having me. It's been great. Cheers, man.
Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Doctor.
And until next time, listener, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Adios.
Don't die.
Do not die. Best advice we've had from a guest so far.
I don't know how else to put it. Just try not to die today.
Yeah, I appreciate the try not to. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, statistically, some of you will.
it's a big task for a lot of
Just
people.
do your best, okay? That's all we ask of you. If you can't, well...
Oh, that's really dark, isn't it? Statistically, some of you will, but try not to.
User, maintain an even keel. Make sure you can get back to the
Yeah.
surface.
Thank you to everyone who have signed up to support the show, and a big shout out to all of our top tier patrons. Our sideboard cats are Alex K, Asha Rin, Boss, Katiga Reptile, Charlie, Comrade Sleepy Bro, Daniel F, Graham E, Jesselyn T, Jorg 2, Gaddafi to Chimp Arms Smuggling, Joss, Kamo, Lane of the Wired, Legally Distinct Patreon name goes here, Matt, Mobius Striptease, Murray Motorsports, Mysterious Stranger, Oil Drum, Pat, Paul C, Rare Scrungle Spingus 3rd Edition, Skylab Bricks, Source Force, Spectre Cohen, Tortilla Baron, Vivek D, and Wingsmith, Molybdenum Disulfide Connoisseur. Our space dogs are A Union Thug, A. Blinkan, Agent Carter, Alexander the OK, Alice N, Andrew K, Angie, Angry Old Man Yada Yada, Anthony C, Arlen S, Atomic Hobbit, Otto Fox, Avocado Assassin, Baron M, Batbay, Ben L, By Barbarian, Big Meg, Binary Badger, Bird, She-Her, Beanie, Boomzilla, Boring Brian, Booj, C, Cantaloupe Was Taken, Celeb Gill, Chainsaw Snuggling, Charles H, Charlotte M, Chris K, Christian K, Clay M, Cole C, Captain Lag, Cynical Scribble, Daddy Bongo, Darth Baby, David L, Does Smiley, Dom K, Drain Damage, Dr. Shockmaster, Duke of New York, Enk, Aaron, Eric J, FBH, FinFet Circuits, Fractal Moonlight, Furious Luddite, Garrett B, George B, Grant K, Griffin, former snow shoveler of Burger King, Heiko S, Howl's Moving Pictures by Rush, Human Post Fuel Soup. I heard Stephen Miller is a pedophile. Isn't that crazy? I hope you have a good day. Ian R, Iggy Naramis, JMM, James A, James C, James T, Jamie K, Jarl Breadmaker, Jerry M, Jedediah D, Joan of Bark, Joanne's Man, Miss You Forever, John C, John E, John Boy D, Johnny Terrors, Jonathan G, Jonathan W, Just Morse, Kate B, Kate D, Corbin the Dog, Cruzzy, Lartan 1337, Lens Wipe, Liliana, Lorgath, Luke O, Lixon's PC, Majestic Affect, Man Who Is Average, Mar, Marigold Muskrat, Marto, Mech Girl Alley, Michael, Michelin Star Blemtro, Mish, Mr. Dr. John, Mitch P, Moomin Instrumentality Project, Narrow Ebb, Nelly W, New Name, Nicholas S, Nick S, Norman W, Northeast Driver, NSFW NSA, Outlook Cove, Panda, Pat S, PB, Poop Butt, Randall, Ray H, RBK, Rayto B, Riley, Robert G, Sailor of Fortune, Scott K, Sean F, Sean H, Central Kazoo, Sean P, Silly Vixen, Skyhawk, Something, Sparks, Spirit of Thunder, Starlight Foxalope, Strona Hoen Eats Shoots and Leaves, Swanee, The Best Sean, Thomas M, Tim P, Toasty Ken, Trashed, Barash T, Vrisk, Will W, William O, William P, Winston P, Wouter S, Zachary JB, Zaf, Zemo, Zim, and Zombie Dwarf. Albert Count 218. Albert Count 218. Thank you for listening to another episode of Failure to Launch. If you want to follow us, we are Failure to Launch on Blue Sky and FT Launch Pod on Instagram. We also post our episodes with visual aids at Failure to Launch Podcast on YouTube. FTL intro and outro themes were provided by DJ Danarchy.